All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. In this one, I wanted to really highlight some of the standout performances so far through the Shrine Bowl practices. There's a lot of talent this year, a lot of guys that, personally I'm really excited about. A lot of guys on that roster make sense for the Jets, right? Filling different positions of need, guys that I feel like would work really well with Aaron Glenn and what he wants to do on the defensive side of the football. So let's start first up with a Maryland defensive tackle, Jordan Phillips, someone who has been the best player throughout the course of the week. At 6'1", 318, Jordan Phillips showed off quickness, athleticism, and power. Now, power was kind of the big thing with Jordan Phillips back at Maryland. Just such a strong athlete. People have referenced, some of his weightlifting metrics, such as like the overhead press and the squat. But Phillips, during these practices, was just ragdolling offensive linemen, throwing them to the side, completely taking over the practices. And I'm really excited to see how he does in the game. But he has a really big frame. He's violent. He moves well horizontally, and he's built low to the ground as well. And, obviously defensive tackle, you're looking at the position right now for the New York Jets. It's a huge position of need, right? Lecky Fotu missed a ton of games last season, and he's a free agent. Javon Kinlaw was pretty disappointing last season. I wish we saw more out of Kinlaw, especially for the contract that was given out to him. And he's a free agent anyway, so we have a humongous hole. Assuming Aaron Glenn wants to run, a defensive system with the 4 down linemen, I'm 95% sure that that's gonna be the case because of the current personnel. I think Phillips is a really, really interesting option here. Now, you could argue, okay, well, Phillips was a nose tackle at Maryland, lining up right over the center, and that's not going to be the case with this Jets defense. But I think if you're Aaron Glenn, a former player, you're looking at Phillips' size, his overall power, his explosiveness, his sideline quickness, and you're saying, you know what, I can really work with a guy like this. We've seen the Detroit Lions in these past couple of drafts select bigger defensive tackles that kind of are known for really presenting power, but clogging up lanes and really trying to open up lanes or give other defensive linemen one-on-one matchups. So I think Phillips is an interesting name, but his stock is shooting up because of these Shrine Bowl practices. So before we move on to the second prospect here, I did want to give a shout out to SeatGeek, today's video sponsor. Over 70,000 live events. They got football, they got basketball, baseball, concerts, you name it, SeatGeek probably has it, right? They have this awesome numbering system where, and this is something I talk about all the time, it's clear cut, it makes sense. I'm not sitting there overthinking things when I'm, trying to buy tickets to some, to a specific event, right? It's very simple. Green is good, red is bad. If you are looking at tickets and you're, it's expensive, it's graded as a red 2, chances are you're probably going to want to move on and try to find a better seat or a better deal somewhere within that stadium. But if you come across a ticket that's a green 9, a green 10, at least for me, I feel pretty good, pretty comfortable checking out and moving forward with those tickets because it's considered a great deal based off of where the seat is in the stadium and, of course, price. If you use code Jetscentral, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. And, thanks again, SeatGeek, for sponsoring the video. Next up is wide receiver from Tennessee, Donte Thornton. At 6'5", 215 pounds, he's considered right now a mid-rounder, but someone who has a ton of speed. That's been on full display this week, just blazing right by corners. He's coming off a season with 26 catches, 661 receiving yards, 6 TDs, but he averages 25 yards per reception. So this guy's a true deep threat. And again, at 6'5", it's rare to find those really, really, really fast, like blazers on the outside, but also present top end size as well. Again, at 6'5". Now, he's not the biggest dude in the world as far as weight, only 215 pounds. But still someone who I feel like, if he's there in that midsection of the NFL draft, we're looking at this Jets offense. Who is the deep threat? Garrett Wilson can occasionally make plays down the field, but I thought that role was going to be Mike Williams, and the Jets just refused to throw the ball deep. I don't know if that was an Aaron Rodgers thing. I don't know if that was a Nathaniel Hackett thing. We didn't really throw the ball deep in 2023 either with, Zach Wilson at the helm. I don't know what the Jets' issue is. It felt like the offense was playing within like a 10 to 15 yard rectangle, and we just weren't allowed to go beyond that, that back wall. I don't understand. Maybe it's just we didn't have the personnel at wide receiver. But then again, you can argue, well, Mike Williams kind of has made that characteristic his specialty throughout the course of his career, and we didn't even utilize it. So, again, you're looking at the roster, Corley, Gibson. I'm talking someone who can rip the safeties right off the top of the defense, stretch them wide. If you're playing against, single high coverage, you like as that safety, you have to respect someone's speed. So chances are you're going to, worst case scenario, you're going to pay attention to that section of the field. But I think adding someone with speed like this will really, really help this Jets offense kind of break out of this one-dimensional, quick passing, short passing style. And granted, it's a completely different offensive staff. At the point of this recording, we don't know if Rodgers is going to be coming back, but I would like to imagine that the new offensive coordinator coming in is going to have, the want to throw the ball deep occasionally. Right. We'll see how much they value that in due time. But, speed does not hurt at all. Next up, looking at quarterback, Kyle McCord here. He was the best quarterback coming in to the Shrine Bowl practices, and he's been the best quarterback so far. This is someone who was absolutely dominant for the Orange last season, obviously coming in as that Ohio State transfer, threw over 4,700 passing yards, 34 touchdowns to 12 picks, with a completion percentage at 66%, 37 career games, 6'3", 210, 215 pounds. I will say, although the numbers are just mind-blowing, right? Over 4,700 passing yards in 13 games? That's insane. But to be fair, Kyle McCord did throw the ball a ton. That was a big, big emphasis with the Orange offense. I believe there was over 590 passing attempts last season for McCord. So if you are dropping back that much and throwing it that much, of course, you're going to rack up receiving yards. Of course, not taking anything away from McCord or those yards, but it is, relevant to talk about. There's some quarterbacks that are, in the mid threes, the low 400s. And again, Kyle McCord's in the, high tier 500s as far as overall passing attempts go. So I do think that is something to make a note of, but what's kind of remarkable about the whole thing, putting up a really, really effective completion percentage at 66% with having over 590 passing attempts. That's pretty eye-opening, right? What does that tell you? It tells you he makes smart decisions. He knows where to go with the football. He can diagnose what's happening in front of him from the defensive side of the football. Now, where will Kyle McCord end up going in the NFL draft? Obviously, this class is considered a quote-unquote weaker quarterback class. So I do feel like QB3, QB4, QB5, this stuff is pretty fluid. I think we're going to be getting updates really up until the NFL draft, right? Who's going to do well in interviews? Who's going to do well at the combine? Who's going to put together an impressive offseason where they're sitting down with teams and they're meeting with teams. I think McCord has all the potential to be one of these draft day risers. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's a first round pick or anything like that. I still feel like he's going to be a mid-round guy, but it's someone that the Jets can look at in those middle rounds because, again, at this point in time, we kind of have a question mark. It's unclear what's happening at the quarterback position. So Kyle McCord, impressive season with the Orange, impressive Shrine Bowl practices this week. And last but certainly not least, Cobee Bryant, corner from Kansas. I would say probably Phillips and Bryant here are the two guys that everyone's talking about, two guys that everyone's buzzing about. Bryant has pretty interesting measurables, coming in at 6 foot, 6'1" only 175 pounds though. But despite that weight, he was still able to make an impact, again, in the Big 12 as a tackler. 37 total tackles, 4 INTs, 7 passes defended against, back-to-back seasons, first team all Big 12. Bryant was feared Bryant was feared this week during the practices, right? Quarterbacks just simply could not complete passes against him. Again, it's a corner that presents a lot of length. You don't need to be the fastest guy in the world if you are really, really long, like Cobee Bryant is. And again, despite his weight being where it's at, it doesn't take away from his aggression on the field, his ability to come up and stop running backs, right? Really attacking that running game hard. Because you can argue, okay, with the Jets specifically, you have a tall, rangy, long corner in Sauce Gardner, who has, just being transparent and real here, it seems like he does not like contact at all. He's not really a force in the running game. I mean, there were times last season where they would just literally dial up run plays and go right at him. Just put one blocker on the outside. He's not getting by that blocker. And it's just positive yards. He's not going to come up and make tackles. And if he does, I mean, there's been numerous offensive players that have just ran right through him. So you could argue, why would the Jets go with a corner who has a similar type of frame to Sauce Gardner? Granted, a little bit shorter, not as freakish, athletically speaking, but someone who isn't the biggest guy when it comes to the weight. Do we have that, again, overall power at the cornerback position between Gardner and Bryant? If Bryant was the pick by the Jets, probably in round 2, I would say it's a fair point. It's a totally fair point. But of course, weight, you can fluctuate it, right? You can get bigger, you can get stronger. And again, that never really, to me at least, it never really impacted Bryant's game with the Jayhawks throughout the course of his career. I mean, he was dominant, but he's really known for ball skills. When you just kind of go back and look at his Kansas career. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section on these 5 guys. Were there any players that stood out to you specifically? Any guys that you want the Jets to target? I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks so much. And as always, go Jets.